Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker, host and author of That Girl the Podcast, where each week we talk about the coming of age at any age. That Girl the Podcast is based on That Girl the Novel, which is on Amazon to download, listen to, or buy the paperback of. You can also follow us on Instagram at That Girl the Podcast and our Patreon page. Hey.
Hey. What's up, Jackie? Good to see you.
What's up? Good to see you too. I love your mural behind you.
That is all 100% my wife.
I had a feeling it could be.
Yeah, it's 100%, but I dig it. I definitely dig it. There's a lot of pink in our place,
yes.
But I'm cool with it. I dig pink. There was one time that I posted a picture of online, and we had some like pink pillows and a pink couch, and some dude was like giving me crap. He's like, "Oh, you're such a, whatever," calling me names and stuff. And I was like, right. I don't define my masculinity by the way my house is decorated. Sorry.
Absolutely. Well, it just goes to show you're so much more in touch with your masculinity than he is, because you're cool with pink. So let's introduce you. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself a little too, because I always feel like people do a better job of introducing themselves. But I am with Christian Lopez, and he is a motivational coach. He has an amazing podcast called Behind the Mask, like M-A-S-K, Unity, so masculinity. And I'm going to let you take it from there.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to see you again. I know we met, I don't know, maybe
like a while ago,
5 years ago or something crazy like that. I think I was working at that bar restaurant right in Hollywood. And I think you might have your car was like getting worked on or something that.
It was.
And then you just stopped in, and I think you had a little drink at the bar, or you had something to eat. And then we just kind of like chatted and hit it off, kind of kept in contact ever since. So yeah, it's nice to see you again. Nice to talk to you, and thanks for having me. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'll make it not super long so we can get into the meaty stuff. So essentially, I was a professional athlete for nearly a decade of my life. That was my dream. That's all I ever wanted to do. Since I was a kid, people would ask me, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Baseball player. And they're like, "Oh, what if that's really tough? What if that doesn't work out?" And I'm just like, I don't know. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. So I was fortunate enough to get drafted out of high school. I went to high school in Miami, Florida, got drafted, got to play nearly 10 years of my life professionally. And it was a dream, for that near decade of my life. It was like I was trapped in this little dream, in this little bubble where life was great. Everything was great. And as soon as that career came to an end, I was just like that bubble burst. Like I woke up from that dream, and I was just like, oh shoot, it was real life, but it almost kind of wasn't real life. Because when you're in that sports world, it's almost like it's disconnected. Like obviously it's still life, it's still human beings. But when I got drafted out of high school, I essentially went from being an 18-year-old kid right out of high school, thrust into this professional realm. But it wasn't professional. Like a lot of people go into the professional world and they get a corporate job that maybe they don't like, or it's just like, all right, I got to go to work. I felt lucky every single day to go to work, every single day. Like there was days where I was obviously tired and I wish we had a day off, just because it's a rough job on your body. But I felt fortunate every single day to be able to do that. So I went from this 18-year-old kid playing high school baseball to getting to playing professional baseball and getting paid for it. And it was just like, it was a dream come true. So I never had that transition where I skipped college, I skipped university. So I never kind of had that transition of like, going to college and getting that experience, maybe maturing a little bit, maybe figuring out who I am a little bit more besides baseball. So when my baseball career came to an end, it was just like, I felt like an 18-year-old kid all over again. But now I was 27, 28 years old. And I had some jobs in the off season and stuff like that, but I didn't really know how to put together a resume. I didn't really know how to put together like a really long CV. I didn't have a degree to fall back on. I didn't really have these other kind of like corporate, I guess, more normal life experiences.
Absolutely.
I just knew baseball. Knew baseball. So when that bubble burst and when that dream came to an end, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea what else I was good at. I had no idea who I was. No clue, because I always relied on that identity. I'm like Christian Lopez, baseball player, Christian Lopez. Even my grandma growing up, every time she spoke Spanish, she only speaks Spanish. So every time she'd introduce me to other people, she'd be like, "Ese es mi nieto, el pelotero," which means this is my grandson, the baseball player. So that was my identity. That's all I knew was baseball player. So when I lost that career, I lost a huge part of myself, if not 100% of myself. Right. So it took me a long time. It really took me a long time. That's what kind of forced my move to LA, because after I lost that baseball career, my ego was crushed, like absolutely crushed, because I built myself, my identity, my image purely on baseball. If I had a great game, I felt great about myself. If I had a bad game, I felt terrible about myself. I felt like I was a failure, felt like I was a loser. So it was just this kind of big roller coaster ride. But I knew at the end of the day, I could always come back the next day, put on that uniform, and I was Christian Lopez, a baseball player again. So once I lost that, I was just lost. I was lost. I was scared. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, man, what can I do? How can I use some of these skills or some of these natural just gifts that I have and make some money? I was just like, oh, brilliant. I'll move to LA and I'll be an actor. Just like, all right, that's
oh my gosh.
Packing up my bags, going out to LA. I was just like, and it wasn't because I had a passion for acting. Like some of these people that I went to like acting class and stuff with, they've been doing this kind of like I did baseball since they were 5, 6, 7 years old. I didn't do it because I had a passion for acting. I did it because my ego was so crushed. I needed the world to see, hey, Christian Lopez is not a failed baseball player. He's not a loser. Look at him on TV. Look at him on that billboard. Look at him on that cover of that magazine. And I just had all these thoughts of like, man, one day, somebody's going to see me on TV or on a billboard, in a magazine, whatever it is. So that was my motivating drive behind moving to LA. It wasn't because I was, I on the outside, I was just like, oh yeah, I love acting. I'm passionate. I wasn't passionate about acting. I just wanted to feed my ego. Go ahead.
You know what's interesting is when you were talking about baseball and you were drafted right out of high school, which is amazing. And so it's incredible. It doesn't happen to everybody. It's almost as if you were in this bubble of entertainment, but in the sports world, which I think are very similar places. I've worked a little in the sports world, and it is a very similar kind of situation. And so after that, I'm not surprised that you were like, oh, I'll be an actor, because it's like that natural progression of like one bubble to another that are so completely outside of the rest of the world. Just wanted to point that out.
No, that's such a good point, because actually there was a couple of my teammates and this kind of like sports reporter in this little town that I played in. They would always kind of like joke with me. They're like, dude, you should go be a soap opera star. Like you got the look, you got the charisma, like you should totally be doing that. So that was one of the driving forces. When I retired, I was like, yeah, maybe I will take their advice. Maybe I will move to LA and become a soap opera star. And then another part too was, you're absolutely right. I remember one of my favorite things about being an athlete were the fans. Like I love the fans. I love signing autographs. I love taking pictures. And I'm sure part of that was because it really fed my ego. Like it made me feel like, oh, somebody really cares about me. Somebody really thinks I'm awesome. And that's something that I've struggled with a lot in my life is really, I can be my own worst enemy. I can be my own biggest critic and I can do amazing things, but I look at myself and I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. But then I have other people telling me like, no, that was pretty good. Like, we're proud of you. We're happy for you. So yeah, that was a really good insight. Thanks for adding that. But yeah, after I did that, I did acting for a couple of years, and then it just got to the point where I was just like, I thought it was going to be easy. I thought I was going to come here and overnight I'm going to be on a big TV show. I'm going to be in a big movie, like, just typical rookie stuff coming into this industry. And, after a couple of years, I booked a couple small things here and there, but it just got to the point where, it's and choosing the entertainment acting industry when your ego has really been battered is not the greatest choice, because, you're going to auditions and you're getting no, we're going to pass. And like, it's just like, it's pretty much like getting battered even more and more. That I was already at a point where I didn't feel good enough about myself. And then after taking a couple years of that, it was just like, it just got to a point where I was just like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't what I thought I was going to be. I don't love it that much to keep battling through the rejections. So I just got to a point where I was just like, this doesn't make me happy anymore. And I remember coming home one night from acting class, and I was just in bed and I was just mopey and I was just distraught. And my wife, I don't know if we were married at the time, but she just asked, she's like, babe, what's wrong? And I was like, nah, I'm good. And of course, being, a macho man, I was just like, I'm not going to talk about my feelings. And I was just like, no, I'm good. And she kind of insisted. She's like, hey, just talk to me, open up. What's going on? I can tell something's wrong. Something's different. And I just opened up and I started crying, like, just not like, little tears, like bawling, just like deep breath crying. And I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm unhappy. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what the rest of my life is going to look like. I'm scared. I'm insecure. Like, all of these emotions came flooding to the surface. And after that, I kind of made a decision. So I stepped away from acting. But then when I stepped away from acting, that was really scary too, because I was no longer a baseball player. I was no longer an actor. I was back at square one. Like, who am I? Who am I? But I hadn't yet done the work to start to define myself, not by what I do on the outside, but who I am on the inside. I hadn't gotten to that point yet. So I needed a label. I needed something on the outside to define myself. And so other people could see me as well. Because that was a big thing. I've always been a people pleaser, and I've always been the type of person that judges myself based on what other people think about me. That's just what I was. I don't know if it's something that happened in my childhood.
I mean, it's very normal. I think we do that a lot. We always want just validation. We're just human,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just part of being human. You're right. But, so yeah, I quit that. And then I was just back at square one. I was like, what do I do? Who do I want to be? And, about a year after that, maybe or so, I started looking into firefighting. It's got that brotherhood. It's got like that teammate locker room vibe. You get an opportunity to be a hero in the community. It's got all these things that I miss from baseball. Obviously, it comes with its inherent dangers. But apart from that, it's good pay, it's good benefits, it's, good retirement, that stuff. So at that point in my life, I just wanted a stable career, because there was so much instability after my baseball career. I was just like, I just want a little stability in my life. And of course, an identity. So my identity was just like, I'm going to be a firefighter. Everybody's going to love that.
Right.
So dedicated myself to that for like 2.5 years, interviewing, studying, working out, just doing everything to prepare myself. And then back in 2019, it was like March of 2019, I got a letter in the mail from one of the departments that I applied for. My wife had actually got it downstairs in our mailbox. She comes running up the stairs, and I hear the footsteps in the hallway. I was like, why is she running? And she bursts through the door. She's like, babe, you got a letter from the fire department. I was just like, this is it. I've been waiting 2.5 years. I'm going to start the academy. My life is going to change. My life has finally found a stable path and a new identity. And I open up that letter and I start reading, and it wasn't a, hey, welcome to the team letter. It was a rejection letter. It was like, hey, thank you for applying, but, we've looked over your whatever, yada, yada, and we've decided not to select you, in the process. Best of luck with your future endeavors. They don't even really tell you why, why they didn't select you. So yeah, that was another one of those just freaking daggers straight to the heart of my ego. And it was just like,
what do I do again?
That was like 2.5 years. Yeah. Back at square one. Yeah.
That's
back
a
at
long
square
time.
one. Yeah. And so it was tough. But in that moment, there was also this moment. Yeah, it was a huge ego crush, but there was also this moment of, hey, maybe this is the universe trying to tell me something. Maybe this is something out there trying to tell me like, hey, maybe this isn't what you were meant to do. So when that rejection came, yes, I was crushed, but there was also a moment of kind of relief, because even though I really wanted that job and I really wanted that career, there was also this sense of like, all right, well, at least I won't have to deal with trauma, for the rest of my life, for my career. So there was almost a sense of relief. And around that time that I had gotten that rejection letter, I had already started doing that work on myself. Anyway, I had a really good, deep conversation with a really good friend of mine. We sat down for lunch, for some coffee, and for 3 hours we just spoke. And he just really opened up to me. I opened up to him. I cried a few times, and he just really told me some really good things about myself that I just really needed to hear at that time. And after that day, I made a vow to myself. I was like, all right, I need to make a change. I'm tired of feeling sorry for myself. I'm tired of waiting for something to just happen to me or waiting for somebody to just rescue me. I need to make some changes if I want to see some positive changes in my life. So, started meditating, doing yoga, journaling, just devouring any self-help book. And one of the first books I read was by Brene Brown, Daring Greatly. And I love Brene Brown's work. I love Brene Brown's work. Her. Yeah. So that was a really big help. And ever since then, it's just been, over 3 years of really digging deep within myself and trying to find that identity of who I am deep down at my core, instead of relying on like, oh, I'm a baseball player, or I'm an actor, or I'm a firefighter, because those things those things can come and go, just like that in the blink of an eye. But who you are deep down, that's never going to go away. So just trying to find that out. So I had already started that process. So when I got that rejection letter, it was also like, okay, maybe I should focus a little bit more on this self-development stuff. Maybe I should start, maybe this is what I need to do for myself and for others as well. So pretty much started, just doing little simple blog posts on Medium. I just started writing about what I felt and who I was. And just started really being really open. Like, it was scary as hell. It was scary as hell because A, I'm a former professional athlete, and B, I'm a man. And not only that, I'm a Cuban man who grew up in the Cuban community. That's really, it can be really machismo. And you don't cry, you don't talk about your feelings, and you don't open up, and you're not soft, and you're not feminine. So it was really scary to start to open up. And what I found that when I started to open up about these things vulnerably, many men started to reach out to me and be like, hey, I feel you. I've been through that myself. I know what you're talking about. I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought it was going to be dudes coming up to me and be like, yo, you're such a, PUSSY, or
Right.
you're so soft, or you're gay, or you're feminine, or you're a beta male, or whatever. And yeah, I had some people say that here and there sparingly, but like most of it has been men reaching out to me and say, hey, thanks for saying this. Thanks for opening up about this. This is something that I've been dealing with. I just don't have the courage to speak about it. I don't know how to articulate it. So I started getting a lot of that. And then, social media posts and stuff like that, just opening up. And then I was just like, man, people are really digging this. But I wanted a way to really, I like doing things like this. I like having conversations. I like speaking off the cuff, because when you're writing an article, you can always go back and you can edit it and make it sound all, perfect and pretty and good punctuation and grammar and all that stuff. But when you're speaking like this, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's really coming from the heart. It's not like something I'm thinking about. I'm just speaking off the cuff. So I was just like, why don't I start a podcast? Why don't I do that? That sounds like fun,
Right.
But the little insecure part of me, the little 5-year-old kid inside of me, that's a people pleaser, and that's always worrying about what people are going to think about me and say about me, was like, no. Just like, the blog posts are enough right now. Let's not stretch ourselves too far. Like, no, I don't know. Let's stay small. Let's play small. Let's not go too big. Let's keep it here for a little while and see how it goes. So it took me about a year from having the idea of doing a podcast to actually doing it, because those fears and those insecurities and those excuses that I made for myself, like, oh no, I don't have enough time. Yes. I don't know how to do it. It's not going to sound good. Nobody's going to listen to it. Who cares? Who am I?
Right. All the imposter syndromes.
Exactly. Every single one of them coming full force. So it took me about a year to finally do it, but finally I did it, and I launched my first episode. And the main focus with the podcast and with what I'm doing now is just really just getting men to open up, getting men to realize it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a PUSSY. It doesn't make you a beta male. It doesn't make you feminine. It doesn't make you gay, because you have feelings and you have emotions, especially the lesser negative emotions like loneliness and fear and insecurity and failure and unworthiness and not being good enough. That doesn't make you weak. It just makes you a human being. And I just want to get to a point where men can openly share these things. It's not to say that I want men to just be crybabies and just, oh, poor me, like, oh, everything, everything that happens is against me, whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. But, the analogy that I like to bring up is, I want men to be able to go out on the field or in the factory or whatever it is their domain is, and be that macho tough guy who gets stuff done and who works hard and who busts his ass and who makes money and who takes care of his family. But then also be able to come home and be that tender, loving, caring, affectionate, vulnerable, open, emotional man with their children, with their spouses, with their partners, whatever it is. There's no reason why we can't be both, because we don't just have masculine energy. We have feminine energy. You have masculine energy as a woman. Yeah. Oh, yes. So it's just like, there's no reason why we can't tap into both of those. And that's, in my opinion, I think that's a big issue. That's one of the main factors why we see the rise in, suicide in males, why we see this, these destructive patterns, this unfortunately divisiveness that we see going on in the world. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that men, for some reason, feel emasculated because somebody says this about them or because somebody says that about them. But when you're really secure in who you are, you're going to get angry and you're going to have your bad days. Sure. But when you're really secure in who you are, what somebody says about you or somebody else's opinion, like they say, oh, you're weak, you're beta male, you'd be like, all right, that's your opinion, man.
Well, I was listening to your latest podcast and you brought up a really good point that little boys from like age baby to, and I don't think you remembered the age they stop at, let's just say 5 or 6, are
Hmm.
more emotional than little girls. They show more
Hmm.
facial expressions. They have more emotional things coming out of them.
Hmm.
And then around probably school age, when like maybe not like kindergarten, but maybe like second, third grade, I'm just guessing. I could be wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, they start getting that, feeding from the other little boys in their class, from their parents, telling them like,
Hmm.
don't cry, don't be this, don't be that. And I'd like to believe that we are definitely evolving, because I think there are a lot more men these days finally,
Hmm.
opening up. And also just as a woman, and I'm sure your wife can absolutely agree to this, like
Hmm.
we want someone who is masculine, who is going to take care of his family and work
Hmm.
hard and be driven.
Hmm.
We need that, but we also want someone we can actually emotionally connect with.
For
We
sure.
don't want the caveman who's like, I go to work and I don't have
Hmm.
emotion. Blah. Like what woman these days would be interested in that? Like I
Hmm.
don't know anyone who would be.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think what you're doing is really important, and basically allowing men who, maybe don't live on the coast. I'm going to just be honest. Like, I feel like on
Yeah,
the coast, we're a lot
it's
more
a good
open
point.
to just,
It's a good point. Yeah.
being this way. But like, in between, who are just like, I'm a coal miner. Like, I can't be, emotional. But like, chances
Hmm.
are they're the most emotional ever, because they've been
Absolutely.
having just
Absolutely.
hided and all of that shame that you talked about.
Yeah.
Shame is such a powerful, powerful emotion, and it can really
Hmm.
destroy lives. I know I've dealt with my own shame from a
Hmm.
Me Too incident, and it kept me from my happiest life for
Yeah.
most of my adult life. And I'm so glad that I finally overcome that and like moved past it. But it's just, when you're really, and I think too, what you said too is like when you're really finally secure in yourself, you don't really care what other people say of you, because you instantly know, well, that's your opinion. And that's
Hmm.
most likely your projection of your own stuff on me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this isn't really about me. Like, you can call me all the names you want and think of me the way you think, that this is really your stuff. And so it's a
Hmm.
lot easier to just detach from that person or that thing that they've said or the thing that they did. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt or that you don't feel it naturally, of
Of
course.
course. Yeah. That's what I was just gonna kind of add there is, like you said earlier, we're human beings. We're still human beings. We're still gonna want valid. Like, look, like a
Mm,
couple weeks ago, my wife told her parents, like we were having a conversation, and in that conversation, she said she's really proud of me because I got this new
mm,
job and I'm making some changes, and that felt awesome. That felt
yeah.
really good to like hear my wife say she's proud of me. Like I get, I get emotional and tingly just repeating that story because that felt really good. Like
Yeah.
as much progress and as much change as I've made, and as much as I've kind of dealt with some of those insecurities and those fears, A, they're still there, but B, it's part of being human.
Yeah.
We want to fit in. We want to be part of that crowd. None of us are meant to do life alone. None of us. So
No.
we're going to crave that validation. We're going to crave that. And yeah, we're still going to be human beings. So as strong as you might get, you're still sometimes going to have fear or anger, have these emotions well up. But one little
Yeah.
piece of advice that I'd like to share is, even if you've done that work, even if you've gotten to the point where you're like, oh, whatever, like people might bash on me, but that's their opinion. But every once in a while, one of those opinions is going to get through that shield or that armor, whatever it is that you put up. But when that gets through, like, don't, I know it's hard and it takes practice, because some of the first instincts is to lash out at that person and be like, F you, man. No, you don't know
Right.
me. But if one of those, opinions gets through, like, take a moment to think about that. Think about why that opinion that somebody else had of you got under your
Yeah.
skin. Like, because there might be a little something there. There might be like, because look, if somebody said, something outlandish and ridiculous about me that was so untrue, I'd be like, that's not even true. That's stupid. It wouldn't even affect me one bit.
Right.
But if somebody said something that was a little close to my heart that I thought maybe was true, that's when it gets through. And that's like, so when you find it penetrating a little bit and getting through, it might be
Hmm.
an opinion that you're holding about yourself. Like, like that person might say like, oh, you're weak. And it gets through to me like, no, you don't know me. I'm not weak. But it gets through. It's just like, maybe I do feel like I'm weak. maybe I should look at that a little bit deeper. Maybe I could work on that or just investigate that and see where that feeling of weakness is coming through.
Totally investigated. I so agree. Sometimes I have problems with that because I do think that that's true when you're like, oh, well, that did kind of affect me. Or if this happens to me often when someone's doing something in their life and I'm just mad at them for doing it. And maybe it's not even that big of a deal, but it makes me mad. I'm like, okay, what is this really about? What am I really upset about? And sometimes it's hard to figure it out, but it is worth investigating because.
Yeah, for sure. I find myself getting triggered, but actually I'm part of this men's group that I've been a part of for pretty much since early last year. And every week we get together and we have meetings and we open up and we share stuff. And last week I opened up and every week we do stretches. So at the end of the meeting, it's just like, what's your one stretch for this week? What's something that it's going to get you out of your comfort zone? So for me, this week actually was taking moments where I feel triggered, and instead of reacting and judging and putting blame and projecting myself onto others, really take a step back and be like, why am I getting so triggered right now? What is it about this situation that's triggering me so deeply? So that's actually something I've been working on this week. It's hard. It can be really difficult, but I think it's a good practice because it can limit that, because a lot of these things, it's just like this back and forth of like, he said, she said, and like, no, you're stupid. Oh no, you're stupid, yada, yada. But if you can really take a step back, take a breath and be like, why am I so angry right now? That might help.
Yeah. I have found that, fear is usually at the bottom of most of this stuff because maybe, especially with the political climate, which I don't really like to talk about, but in the way that we are, it's like, you're just scared. Whether it doesn't matter what side you're on, like you're just scared of the other thing happening. And that's it. You're just afraid. And again,
there's a lot
humans,
of fear.
Right.
Like you said, fear and shame can make us do some crazy things.
Really crazy things. Really crazy things. Absolutely. So I think it's fascinating. We talked about this when we first met. I remember talking to you about masculinity and femininity in men and women and how there can be a man who's very masculine, but very, well, hold on. Okay. So let me get my thoughts together. So in books that I've read, right? So let's just say you're like a very masculine man in your romantic relationships. Let's preface this. So you want to be the breadwinner, you want to be the like decision maker, kind of the more like traditional man. And then there's also men who are like, nope, actually, I'd really rather stay home. And if you want to work and you kind of want to play the masculine role, quote, that's cool. So I remember talking to you about this because I think this is fascinating. Again, with romantic relationships, not outside of that. You might be a very feminine man in your relationships, but in your regular life, you're incredibly masculine, which tends to happen sometimes where, with women especially, like I'm very masculine in my professional life. So in my romantic relationships, I just want to be super feminine. I just want to be like, I'm going to lean back. I'm going to bake. I'm going to be super feminine here. And I love it. And it really works for me because I'm such a powerhouse in my normal life. I'm exhausted. And I kind of feel like that would be the same with men, but I guess it's not. So maybe you can sort of discuss more of like what that is, where some men are just very, masculine in their romantic relationships or very feminine in their relationships. And maybe you don't know, but I'm just going to ask anyway.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it. So it sounds like you and my wife are very similar in that aspect, where in her work life, in her day-to-day, in her career, she's got a lot of masculine energy, and she kind of needs it because in her industry, she's in the news, kind of like journalism industry. There's a lot of male, there's a lot of males, it's very male dominated. So she's been doing this for 13 years now. So she's kind of needed to use that masculine energy to get where she's at now, to gain the respect of other men. Because, odds are if she would have gone in there and not really exhibited any of that, she might have been looked at like, oh, whatever, it's just another woman, or, she wouldn't have been respected, or her opinions wouldn't have mattered or whatever. So she's very masculine in her work life. But like you, when she gets home, we've even had this conversation before. She's like, I just want you to make me feel like a woman. She'll say that to me. And then, no, it's true. It's so true. So it's funny that you bring that up. So yeah, but it's, sometimes like we're good about it now because we kind of know each other. I mean, we've been together for 7+ years now, but we know each other really well now. But, she knows. She's like, I'm masculine looking. I played sports. I'm big, I'm tall, I'm strong. I work out. I do all this masculine stuff, but I'm really in touch with my feminine side. And I think that started from a really close, still to this day, relationship with my mom. Like we always had a close bond. I was the firstborn. She's always really affectionate with me. Like I still go back to visit my family to this day as a 36-year-old man and lay my head on her lap and she'll just play with my hair. And I love it. I love it. I've always had that. Yeah. I've always had that close bond with my mom. So I think that's where that kind of like more in touchness with my feminine side came from. But I've just always been that way. I'm super, she's like, my wife even tells me, like, the other day we watched Soul, the new Pixar movie.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And I was crying and I think a couple weeks before that, over Christmas, we watched, we had already seen it, but it was on TV and we just started watching it again. We watched Inside Out, another phenomenal Pixar movie. And I was crying and my wife is just like, she just looked at me. She's like, "You're so sensitive." And I was like, yeah, I've always been sensitive. I've always been emotional. I've just always been that way. But I can also go out on the field and kick your ass, not in a fighting way, but in a competitive way. So I can do those things. But yeah, there's been times where we've had, we've gotten into discussions and stuff where, she's told me, she's like, "I just want you to be a little bit more masculine at home." And that doesn't mean, "Hey, I want you to make more money." It's just like, just take charge sometimes and make some decisions. Like I've always been the type of person that would very go with the flow, relax. And I think it's a part of it is because, I'm really always up for anything, but also a part of it too is like, I really don't like responsibility. It's not that I don't like it.
Wow.
It's
that is huge to admit, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. And no, and I just, one of my things, I don't know where it comes from, but it's just like, I hate having too many responsibilities because if it's be like, I have to do this and I have to do that, but I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that. So I still struggle with that a lot, taking on a lot of responsibilities. So that's definitely something that I'm working on, but I've done some work. I've definitely done some work and my wife has acknowledged that. But yeah, we've gotten into like discussions about like, just, make decisions and make plans. Like over the Christmas break, over Christmas weekend, we took a trip to Zion for a few days and I just planned that on my own. She's like, I was like, "Babe, we should get away for the weekend." She's like, "All right, but you take care of it. You plan it." Cause she's really good at planning and budgeting and doing all this stuff. And I was just like, "All right, babe, I'll take over. I'll do it." And she was like happy. She was like, "Yeah, just stuff like that." I know it sounds silly, but stuff like that makes her feel like a woman. Because she's just like, "I don't have to worry about that. Just take care of it. Just do that." So that's definitely something that I'm working on. That's great. But I think we both really feed off each other. Like her masculine energy has really affected me because it's made me more secure in who I am. It's made me, I don't know if I'd be having this conversation with you if I had met my wife, because I wouldn't be comfortable talking about these things. She is really that masculine energy that she exudes on a daily basis for her job really rubs off on me and really makes me, it inspires me. It inspires me to like go out there and speak my mind and really stand up for what I believe in and really express who I really am. And at the same time, I think me being more in touch with my feminine, more emotional, sensitive side has really rubbed off on her because she was always kind of like really guarded and really didn't want to talk about things like that. And I just, our dynamic is really, really good. And I think we both really feed off each other in a really good way.
I love hearing this because this sounds like the new modern relationship where each of our feminine and masculine sides can work together to make each other better together. That's really exciting to hear. And that also gives me a lot of hope because for a while I've just been like, "Oh, well, I guess, it's just black and white." And it's not. It's all shades of gray. Right.
That's what I love about doing this is, you can be, let's say you have a group of male friends, if it just takes that one man to just open up and be like, "Yo guys, like my wife and I just got divorced and I'm really struggling right now." Just it takes one guy to really open up and be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I feel lonely as hell right now. I feel scared. I feel insecure. Like I need some help. I need somebody to talk to." It might be the one guy who opens up. And then you'll notice that the other guys around you are like, "Yeah, man, I've been there. I felt like that before. So that sometimes that's all it takes, that one guy. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping I can be one of many men who are already doing this, who can help other men to just open up. And there's been nothing else like it in my life that has had such an impact and that has caused so much change, as really starting to open up and be okay with my flaws and with my insecurities and with my fears and all these things that I suppressed for such a long time, because it's not what a man is supposed to do. Like, screw that. Like, no, I'm a human being before I'm a man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just souls, really, in bodies.
Yeah, like Pixar.
In meat suits. Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It was my pleasure. And yeah, for any fellas listening out there, and ladies as well, but mostly for the fellas, just don't be afraid to open up. Don't be afraid to open up. We're all emotional creatures. And if you need to reach out to me, I'll have a conversation with you. But yeah, just don't suppress that stuff, and don't hold it inside just because some weird rule somewhere said that that's what men are supposed to do.